When examining the broad roles of organisms in communities, it is easy to recognize that many of those roles describe the flow of energy through the ecosystem. Ecosystems have trophic levels. Trophic levels are the steps in a food chain or food pyramid. Examples of trophic levels include producers, primary consumers, secondary consumers, and tertiary consumers. Energy starts at the bottom trophic level and moves up through each trophic level. The ultimate source of energy is the sun. Producers are the first trophic level. They obtain their energy from the sun. Some consumers obtain energy from eating producers. Other consumers obtain energy from eating consumers. A food chain is a specific path of energy through trophic levels in an ecosystem. Producers are the first level of the food chain. Producers use energy from the sun to produce food. Producers also make organic matter from inorganic substances. The second level of the food chain consists of primary consumers. Primary consumers eat plants to obtain energy. Primary consumers are herbivores. Herbivores must be able to break down plants' molecules into usable energy and compounds. Omnivores can be primary consumers when they are eating plants. The third level of the food chain consists of secondary consumers. Secondary consumers eat other consumers. Carnivores are secondary consumers. Omnivores are consumers when they are consuming other animals. Starting at the third level of the food chain or with secondary consumers, it needs to be noted that these organisms cannot digest cellulose. Cellulose is one of the main components in cell walls. Detritivores and decomposers can also be secondary consumers. Detritivores and decomposers get their energy from decaying organic matter. Detritivores consume decaying organic matter and break it down, releasing nutrients. Decomposers break down decaying organic matter and obtain energy and nutrients from what they have broken down. Tertiary consumers make up a fourth trophic level. The level is composed of carnivores that eat other carnivores. This is an example of an Antarctic food chain. Food chains are linear. This food chain starts with algae. Krill eat algae. Cod eat krill. The leopard seal eats the cod. The orca eats the leopard seal. Algae are producers. Krill are primary consumers or herbivores. Cod are secondary consumers and carnivores. Leopard seals are tertiary consumers and carnivores. Orca or killer whales are quaternary consumers and carnivores. Food webs are interconnected food chains. Food webs are more indicative of what is happening in an ecosystem because energy often does not flow in a straight path. This is because many organisms feed at several trophic levels. This is an example of an Antarctic food web. We can see that the krill are consuming both algae and protist. This makes them omnivores instead of carnivores. We see that squid eat algae, small animals, and protist. This makes the squid both a primary and secondary consumer. The orca is a tertiary consumer if it eats the squid, but a quaternary consumer if it eats the elephant seal. Energy moves through food chains. Potential energy is stored in the chemical bonds in plants. This energy is transferred through the food chain. During this transfer, some of the energy is lost as heat, like the second law of thermodynamics states. The amount of useful energy available decreases as energy goes up each level, limiting the number of trophic levels an ecosystem can sustain. Photosynthesis captures about 1% of energy from the sun. Only 1% of the sunlight is available as energy to the plant. Once energy is in plants, 10% of the energy is transferred up to the next trophic level. Herbivores get 10% of energy available in a plant. 90% of that energy is lost as heat. Carnivores get 10% of energy available from other animals. 90% of the energy is lost as heat. At each trophic level, 1/10 of the energy is stored, then that is stored by organisms in the previous trophic level. Energy pyramids show the amount of energy in each trophic level. The amount of energy decreases drastically as you move up through the trophic levels. Terrestrial ecosystems rarely contain more than 4 trophic levels. This is due to the large amount of energy lost at each trophic level. It is important to realize that the number of organisms isn't representative of the amount of energy at the trophic level. There are many spiders in the third trophic level and few bears. Both still got 10% of energy from the animal they consumed. This diagram shows the amount of energy moving through a simple food chain. Energy moves through each trophic level found in an ecosystem. The amount of energy steadily decreases as you move through the food chain. The ultimate source of energy is the sun, but only 1% of energy from the light hitting a plant is converted into energy that can be used by the rest of the food web. Food webs are complex with many organisms feeding at different trophic levels in different food chains.